Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Julie Smith. I'm a crime prevention specialist here at the Naperville Police Department.
I'm Detective Chris Reading with the Financial Crimes Unit Investigations.
So again, thank you for attending this really important webinar. Um, our meeting is being recorded, so it can be posted on our website for people who couldn't join us today. Just a couple other housekeeping issues. The chat is disabled, but if there's questions that can be added in the Q&A during the presentation, we'll address the questions at the end if there's time, and we'll post the answers to anything we don't get to online in the coming weeks. So with that being said, we're going to get ready into our presentation. What really spurred this presentation on today was the dramatic amount of loss that we saw last year that was reported. Over $5.5 million was reported to the police department in many of these scams. So that really prompted us to do some additional outreach to our residents. So hopefully giving you the information so you'll be able to recognize these scams so you won't fall victim to them. First of all, let's just be clear, anybody can become a victim. It doesn't matter your social or economic status, your educational level and things like that. Anybody can become a victim. And so often when we do these presentations, they're like, oh, I'll never fall for that scam and things like that. But truly, these scammers are so believable, and anybody, no matter what your age, you can become a victim. So how are these scammers contacting you? Usually it's by phone, email, texting, or these computer pop-ups. So first of all, why do these people fall for scams? Well, as I mentioned, the scammer is so believable. They use these manipulation tactics and instill the sense of panic into you, and these high pressure situations that if you don't act immediately, that something bad will happen. Chris, do you want to talk about the complexity of some of these scams?
Sure. With the age of AI and tech, we're seeing a lot more complex scams. A lot of the information that's being put out there to get you to fall for these scams. A lot of the information that people even know about you sometimes, at least enough information to make it a little bit more believable so that you would end up falling for these scams. Again, as Julie said, they want to instill some kind of fear, some type of pressure, something about you need to do this now. You can't tell anybody. You got to go to the bank. Don't tell the banker. All these kinds of things should be kind of clues to you as ways to kind of protect yourself as well as how to not fall for them.
Right. We've even seen scammers telling people that they need to stay on the phone for the duration when they're getting the money out or getting those gift cards, so they can't contact a friend or relative to check the validity of the scam.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I mean, we've actually had numerous cases where bank employees are being trained to kind of recognize these things, where they will actually call us when they believe that victims are in the bank trying to withdraw money. And one of those common things is that the victims themselves are still on the phone. They are they're on the phone with the scammers. They are telling them and guiding them on how to essentially take care of the scam without notifying anybody.
And let's talk about some of the common terms. So we've got a phishing scam. There's an authentic looking email, text message, or web page that tricks unsuspecting users to reveal their personal or financial information. Spoofing can be done over email or on text messages, phone. So that's disguised to look like that's someone that you may know. So let's just say your caller ID says it's from Naperville Police Department, or you might receive a pop-up. Pop-ups are windows that appear on a website while the user is browsing, often interrupting their activity to deliver a message or alert.
As far as the phishing goes, a lot of times you'll get either emails Actually, most of the time they're emails, text messages as well that will look legitimate. They'll want you to click on something. They'll want you to text a number, call a number, which is how they're going to initiate that scam. As far as the email spoofing, we also see with email spoofing, you also see phone spoofing as well, where, as Julie mentioned, phone numbers will look like they're coming from legitimate sources, whether it's a police department, whether it's a government entity, whether it's a business, even a bank. So those are tough to initially diagnose, but ultimately there are some other red flags that we'll get to. As far as pop-ups, yeah, when you're in your email, you go to a website, you'll get a pop-up. A lot of the ones that we're seeing typically now are some type of virus or your computer's been infected. You have to call this number to take care of the issue with your computer. And again, and that's where they're going to get you on the phone and start the scam from there.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little more in a second. Let's talk about some of the commonalities a lot of these scams have, and that is how they want their payment. For the most part, we see that they want that payment via a gift card or cryptocurrency. So let's talk a little bit about those gift cards and how they get their money via a gift card. Now we're all familiar with gift cards, so you load up the money, and on the back of that gift card, you've got the codes that allows you to access the money. But what these scammers are doing, they're convincing you with their problem that they have to load money onto a gift card, and then they want those numbers. Once you do give them these numbers, that money is now transferred into their account, and it is good as gone. And it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get back. Right, Chris?
Yeah. So as far as the gift cards go, again, one of the things we'll get to a little bit later is as far as a red flag is that again, no company, legitimate company, business entity, law enforcement agency, whatever it may be, is going to want gift cards. But that being said, once the gift card is purchased and you provide that code to the scammer, again, that money now is theirs, and there's really no way to get that back. Now, there's ways we can try to trace where those transactions are, but again, getting into that tech and how things are becoming so technologically advanced, a lot of times we end up with dead ends without getting too much into the technological aspects of it, where IP addresses are used that are through VPNs, virtual private networks, where it's not the legitimate user or the IP address that's being used. So it's again a dead end for us. So it becomes very challenging to get to track this down.
And another thing we've seen an increase over the years is the cryptocurrency. Many of us are unfamiliar with cryptocurrency. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what exactly it is. It's a virtual currency. It's converted dollars into digital currency, so it's actually not a gold coin. And it's not backed by the United States government, so it doesn't have any oversight in some of the same laws and regulations that our normal currency does have. I kind of refer to it as the wild, wild west. So we're seeing a lot of times these scammers are requesting that payment via cryptocurrency. They might ask you to go and deposit US currency into one of these cryptocurrency ATM machines. Here's a couple of examples of what they do look like. They're in a lot of storefronts, gas stations, convenience stores, actually right next to a normal ATM machine. So they look very, very familiar. So some of the top 5 scams that we are going to talk about today are these fake warrant and someone impersonating a law enforcement officer, online commerce, phishing scams, tech support scams, and investment scams. Let's first talk about that fake warrant or someone pretending to be someone from a law enforcement. So someone's receiving that call, text, or email, and they're pretending to be from the FBI, Secret Service, U.S. Marshals, or even the Naperville Police Department, right? They're saying that you maybe perhaps have missed jury duty or a court date, and now you have a summons or a citation or arrest warrant out for your arrest, and now you owe some money. And then to avoid being arrested, that you need to pay. You need to pay up via cryptocurrency or send money via a gift card. And you might be saying to yourself, oh, wow, this seems so scary. Well, it is scary because they are very, very demanding, and they use this threatening language that if you immediately don't act now, someone is going to be knocking on your door and you're going to be arrested. So remember, what they always want is for the money to be sent via a gift card or cryptocurrency. So really how to protect yourself. You need to verify that caller. Hang up and call your local law enforcement using a trusted number. Because if they give you a number, what's that number going to lead to, Chris?
Either another scammer or somebody in that crew that's involved in the scam.
Right? So you never want to send any money. No real agency is not going to request a payment via gift cards or cryptocurrency. And always be skeptical. Scammers are using your urgency to push you into quick decisions. So really, no matter what scam we're talking about or things that are happening, just slow down. Take a moment, hang up that phone, confer with somebody else, a trusted friend, relative. You don't need to act quickly because that's what they're preying on. And protect your personal info. Don't share personal details over the phone unless you initiated that call. So remember, Chris talked a little bit earlier about that, the dark web and so much information online already. If you've ever Googled yourself, you can see the information that's out there, your name, your address, and all that scammer might need is a little more information about you to kind of finish that picture, or they've scared you enough filling in those blanks that you think it's a legitimate person.
Yeah, as far as these scams go, as Julie stated and as it states there in red, there is no law enforcement agency, whether it's local, state, federal, anything where anybody's going to be contacting you, attempting to satisfy a payment for any type of criminal charge, warrant, court date, etc., over the phone. So that should be kind of your first red flag when that starts to happen. Um, as far as these scams, from a personal or not personal, but we actually had a sergeant here at the Naperville Police Department whose email was spoofed. And we got many reports that believed that victims essentially believed that our sergeant was requesting payments for this type of scam.
Let's talk about these online resale commerce sites. Scammers are posing both as fake buyers and sellers, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and some of the other online sellers, but they're requesting making fake payments or they're in essence overpaying. Can you explain how this one happens?
So there's a couple different ways with fake payments, things of that nature. You'll see invoices sometimes that appeared for you to have bought something on an online marketplace that you didn't buy. Of course, then it's going to tell you to contact a number there in that email or invoice, and then again, that's where the scam is started. As far as overpayments with these electronic or online payment platforms, Zelle, Cash App, Apple Pay, etc., they will send money to your account because a lot of these accounts are linked via email address or telephone number. So all that you really need to be able to send money is an email address or a telephone number. They'll end up sending you the money and then requesting you to pay to get that money back. With that, there's essentially a way that they can make it look like the money has actually been sent when it actually hasn't. So they'll say or they'll contact you essentially looking for or saying they paid you by mistake, they sent it to you by mistake, it was supposed to go to somewhere else. They want that money back. And then you end up sending that money back, and it actually turns out that it's called a ghost transaction, where it appeared to have actually entered your account when it never did. So then you essentially paid that scammer whatever money they requested, and you're actually out that money.
Oh. Well, let's look at some other red flags and how to protect ourselves. So really, you always want to check that buyer seller profile. When was it created? Did it just get created a few months ago, or is it established many years ago? Look at where they're located. Look at where the picture of that product is based. Do they have that picture on several other platforms or listed in multiple cities? Check out their buyer or seller review ratings as well, and always remember to communicate on that platform. So often we see that person might want to take you away from that platform to communicate.
Um, yeah, this kind of falls into, you'll see a lot of ticket scams with concert tickets, sporting events, things like that. We also see just about anything where somebody is trying to purchase something. So trying to vet the seller and again, looking at reviews, trying to protect yourself that way is going to be the best way to avoid these, where you don't end up sending payment or a deposit or something like that and not get the item that you essentially wanted.
Right. And it really goes without saying to really trust your instincts. If it sounds too good to be true, it really usually is. Let's talk about some phishing scams. I'm sure we've all had them, whether it's an email, a phone call, or a text. They usually start off with there's a problem with their account, or maybe you received a fake invoice. Um, let's say, for instance, maybe Amazon, you receive like a fake invoice in your email, and it says that you purchased an item for like $600. Well, you're thinking, well, I didn't purchase anything. And it's like, well, reach out and contact us. And then it lists a phone number for you to call. And that's what they're gaming on.
Yeah, these are very common. I think one of the ones that's pretty common right now is the tolls or iPass. I've gotten about 6 text messages in the last 3 days reference my iPass account being overdue or violations that you have to pay. It's up there in the top left corner. And again, they're looking for you to either click on that link, call the number, and start to scam that way by contacting them.
Here's an example of one that was sent to an email. So you think looking at it first, you're like, oh, it's from PayPal. There's something wrong with my account. But then as you take a closer look at it, you start looking at the domain. It's not a paypal.com. It's from a mailbox.com. And again, with that, time sensitive, right? You must act now. Solve this in 24 hours or your account is going to be suspended. So again, it's instilling that fear and that sense of urgency. And then if you start looking more at those emails, you'll notice that some of the English is off, the linguistics are off, and some of the grammar. So, and then at the bottom, confirm the account details now. So it wants you to click on those links, make those phone calls. And what happens if you do start clicking on those links?
There actually can be a couple different things that happen. As far as a scam is concerned, it may take you to a web page again that's going to ask you for your information to verify different things. You start entering that information. Now that information's gone. Sometimes it can lead to viruses that actually can be installed into your computer, which can then track your keystrokes on the computer. So if you were to log into your bank account after you've clicked on one of these links, the scammer then essentially is now going to have your bank login information and they can access your bank accounts.
Wow. So let's take a look at how to protect yourself. Again, slow it down. Take a moment, verify that information independently. Go to your own records, make that contact with your bank or Amazon or whoever says that there's a problem with, and verify independently that to make sure that everything is okay. As Chris mentioned, we don't want to be clicking on any links and never share that personal information. And you'd be so surprised, like when you're into that stressful situation, how much information that you actually do give the scammers.
Yeah, the most important point here is to not fall for the time sensitive. You have to do it now. Take a second, look at some of those red flags that we pointed out. Make sure the email address itself may look like, again, it's coming from PayPal, Amazon, whatever. But then if you actually look and click on it to see what the actual email address is, it will show you that it's not actually coming from those addresses. The other thing is that most of the time, all of these emails or text messages or anything you're going to get are going to be referencing an account or some type of information or, again, some type of an account that you actually have. So go take a second, go into that account and look to see if this seems legitimate. If it's an Amazon scam, go into your Amazon account and look to see if there's actually a purchase or a receipt or a transaction history, or same with PayPal. Go into your PayPal, log into your PayPal, see if there are any issues, and independently verify these things before you just start clicking away and giving up your information.
Right. And lastly, never share or give access to your computer. We've seen lots of scams happening where people are letting others access their computer, and before you know it, they're logging into your bank account, and then you're out thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's like a remote, like screen share, or not so much a screen share, but remote access. A lot of that times that happens with some of the pop-ups with the tech support stuff, which we'll get to in a minute. But that's where you see a lot of that.
And speaking of these tech support scams, we have seen a lot of those last year. They can be very scary and intimidating. I don't know if I saw this on my computer pop up saying that you've got a virus and things are being blocked, I would panic. But that's exactly what they want you to do. So how to identify these? So you're on your computer and you get this pop-up saying, there's an alert. You've got a virus. Call this number. So again, that sense of urgency wanting you to call this number. And then it kind of spirals from there. So really, how to identify these? Microsoft will not call, text, or email to tell you that there's a problem with your device. So be wary of an unsolicited pop-up. Again, with that urgent or threatening language. And then ultimately we have a request for a payment. So we can get rid of this virus on your computer if you pay us, right? And again, that preferred method of payment is that cryptocurrency or gift cards. That pop-up might provide that phone number. So again, they're wanting you to call that phone number. And who's on the other side of that phone number?
Always going to be scammers.
Right, right. So really protect yourself. Keep that software up to date. Install that reliable antivirus software or a pop-up blocker. And remember to use strong passwords, which I know is easier said than done, but really on all your different accounts, you really should have a different password on all your accounts. Because if one of your accounts gets compromised, that scammer is going to be looking for other accounts using that same password.
Yeah, as Julie mentioned, the issue with these pop-ups and as I mentioned on the previous slide with the tech support and them accessing your computer, you always want to take the extra step and contact those resources, those companies that are saying that you need to fix this. And again, do it outside of the link or the pop-up. If you have Norton antivirus installed on your computer and you're getting a pop-up that's stating your Norton antivirus, is showing some issues, don't call the number that's in the pop-up. Actually find a number for Norton antivirus or and verify that there is actually an issue with your computer. Because again, if you start allowing remote access to your computer, they're going to be able to essentially get every piece of information that's in your computer.
Well, what to do if you have a tech support pop-up? Well, don't interact with that pop-up. Don't be clicking on the links. Don't call the number that's on that pop-up. You want to close that browser and disconnect from the internet. Try and run that virus scan. Check for any suspicious apps or extensions. You might consider doing a factory reset. But me personally, if I saw one of those computer pop-ups, I'd be closing it down and then seeking some professional help.
Yeah, one of the things that we encourage people to do after they've been a victim or fallen victim to these is taking their computers to some type of tech support to have their computer wiped and essentially reinstalled all the factory software.
Here's some general warning signs of scams. So again, the more information we know about these warning signs, the less likely that we are to fall victim to them. So really be wary of those unsolicited texts, emails, or phone calls, that come out of the blue, that call for immediate action, that you must do this or something bad is going to happen, right? Be wary of those problems, a problem with an account. Be wary of those click on the links to verify the information, right? Scammers now, we talked about, they're wanting to keep you on the phone in order to perpetuate the scam and pay the payment via gift cards or cryptocurrency and asking for that personal or financial information.
Yeah, the gift cards and cryptocurrency are always going to be a tell. Again, no legitimate business entity, financial institution, law enforcement agency, and any of these scams that are perpetrated are going to involve something of that nature, either gift cards, cryptocurrency, some type of electronic payment that is not normal for those entities and businesses to want to ask.
I was going to say, do we still see wire transfers?
We do. We will see wire transfers. The problem with those wire transfers is they're a lot of times they go overseas, and we can't get that money back, generally speaking, because it's in a different country, and a lot of times those countries don't cooperate with our law enforcement.
So again, how to protect yourself, verify that information, hang up that telephone, close out the email, and don't be afraid to end the conversation if you're on the phone with them. I mean, we're all so polite, but there's nothing wrong with just hanging up, right? Hang up and verify that information. Don't share your personal information or share your access to your computer, and just slow it down. Or remember, they're instilling that sense of panic. Talk to a friend, talk to a relative about that situation. Be like, hey, I got this phone call or I received this email. What do you think about it?
Google can also be very helpful. If you were to type into Google the scam that you're receiving, you will probably find a lot of either complaints, information, posts on blogs, etc., regarding those scams, which would then give you some peace of mind that it is in fact a scam.
Lastly, we want to talk about these cryptocurrency investment scams. Of the $5.5 million that was reported to the Naperville Police Department last year, a large portion of that were these investment scams. So, what should you know about them? Well, criminals befriend a person to entice them to make crypto investments through phony apps or websites. They promise a high rate of return. The investments may start out slow with small sums of money, but then they build. You might have heard this term, pig butchering in the mail or on TV, but it's the long term con.
Yeah, these scams are becoming very popular. They they can come to you in a variety of different ways. Social media seems to be kind of the most common. Um, but the biggest issue is once it gets to the point where they're wanting the cryptocurrency and the investment in the cryptocurrency, that's where the red flag should kind of go off. Because again, there's a variety of different ways that they may contact you. You may have heard of romance scams, which involves somebody befriending you, or whether it's dating sites, social media, etc. And then ultimately they're going to uh, get you to download these apps, download these websites to invest in cryptocurrency, which we'll explain here.
Right. What I always find interesting is that they're just those random texts that start out of the blue, like, oh, I've got a wrong number. And then all of a sudden they start communicating a little more and building that trust with that person. And they're not always those romantic relationships. A lot of times we've seen it across business platforms or investment groups where one friend maybe might recommend it to another friend because they don't know about the scam yet. So exactly that's how does it work? So again, Chris mentioned they promise those high rate of returns. So we've got one person saying, hey, I've been investing in cryptocurrency. Look how much money I've made over the past week. And I can coach you or I can mentor you and you can do the same.
Yeah, with these apps and these platforms, they appear to be legitimate. You can download these apps from the Google App Store, the Android App Store, and they appear to be legit. You will create an account. You'll always invest your money in a different source, whether it's the ATMs, whether it's the other cryptocurrency exchanges, Coinbase, Binance, or some of the most common. Um, but ultimately, the scammer will give you the addresses and where those funds need to go to. And then when you log into this app that you've now downloaded in this account that you've now created, it's going to show that you have this money in this account. And it will ultimately show high rates of returns, very quick growth. And then they will typically sometimes they'll even give you money back to make it seem legitimate, to get you to want to invest more money. And then at the end of it, when you've now made $800,000 in the last 3 days, you want to go withdraw some of that money. You suddenly can't get in contact with them. You're locked out of this account, and you can't access that money. In reality, that money was actually never there. It just appeared to be there because of the way that they're conducting these apps and buildings.
Right. So, like as you mentioned, that money is then gone. That's how it ends. The victim tries to withdraw the money, or they want you to pay additional fees or taxes to cash it in, and then you're locked out. But the money is gone, and then the victim lost everything that was invested.
Yeah, again, one of the things I want to stress is that the amount of money that you see on those apps or those platforms that you think you have doesn't actually exist. But the amount of money that you have put into it, that is the amount of money that essentially is going to be gone. And we've seen, values from a few $1,000s all the way up to millions of dollars from an individual, person investing in this, and now their money's gone. As far as the cryptocurrency and us being able to track that and try to get those funds back. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's highly improbable. We have the ability to trace those funds and see where they go. The problem is they're not like traditional banks. and we can't access that money sometimes or most of the time, even though we know where it is.
So again, how to protect yourself. Research before investing in anything, and recognize the pressure to act fast as a sign of a scam. Don't send any money to anyone that you've met online, and certainly don't take their investment advice. Don't download or use unfamiliar apps. And as Chris said, these apps look very legitimate, very, very legitimate. And don't trust anyone who says it's a sure bet, right? All investments can carry risks. And recognize that even online trading platforms, which may appear real, can be fake. Some other warning signs, right? That unexpected contact by an unknown person. You've got that new friend, quote unquote, who shares investment opportunities, right? They've won or they've invested a lot of money and they're making a lot of money and they want to share their expertise with you. That sense of urgency to invest more money or pay fees, or they take you to different websites that might be misspelled web links. So you think you're going to a real website when it's not. So what to do if you've been victimized?
Obviously, the very first thing is once you've realized it, stop sending the money. Whether it's gift cards, you hang up the phone, stop the crypto stuff, and then contact your banks. Again, depending on the type of scam, banks have actually gotten a lot better with giving money back to victims, even though it's not necessarily the bank's fault. But because of the prevalence of these scams and the victims that are falling victim to them, the next best thing is to contact your bank and advise them of what's going on. They may be able to help you get those funds back. And then after that, contact the police department. There's online reporting. You report it at our front desk, or if for some reason you cannot get to either a computer or the front desk, just call 911 and we will have an officer come and respond and take that report for you.
There's also our website and the City of Naperville's webpage if you'd like more information on scams, and then our personal information if you'd like to reach out. I'll just take a moment to let you look at that and want to write down that information. And I think we might have time for a few questions. If there's any questions here in the chat. How do you protect yourself against overpayment scams? How can you tell if a fake transfer of money to you from a real one?
I think the easiest way or the best way is ultimately what's going to end up happening is it's going to look, as I mentioned before, kind of those ghost payments where it looks like it's a legitimate thing. Most of the time, you're going to see some type of urgency and some type of phone calls that are kind of nonstop. I think the biggest thing that you can try to take away from that is not do anything with that money. At the end of the day, if somebody actually, I mean, if you sent money errantly to the wrong person, probably one of the things you're going to do, maybe reach out to that person, but you're going to reach out to the platform in which you sent it, whether it's Zelle, whether it's Cash App, Apple Pay, etc., and try to reverse those funds. And if it's a legitimate mistake, then again, let's use example Zelle, then Zelle will be able to reverse that transaction for you. So that would be my biggest piece of advice in terms of identifying a real or a fake one, is not to do anything with that money that appears to be in your account. Just leave it, ignore the phone calls, the scammers. Again, Zelle will, or Apple Pay, Cash App, etc. They'll reverse those funds if it's a legitimate mistake.
I also want to remind residents too that we have an internet safety exchange zone right in the front of the police department. We do have cameras, but it is a great location to make those exchanges, because if someone doesn't want to meet you at the police department, well, they're probably not worth meeting. Let's look and see if we have another question. Someone asked asked if this is being recorded. Yes, it is, and it will be available on the city's website. So if you want to look at the information again or play this for friends or relatives, you're more than happy to do so.
Yeah, how do you unsubscribe from an email without clicking the unsubscribe link? I know a lot of, I think you're referring to like at the bottom of that email, it'll have like click to unsubscribe. Um, Apple, I know I'm an Apple guy. I don't know about Android, but I do know that Apple, with a lot of business promotional type emails, they have an unsubscribe button at the top that you're clicking through Apple, and Apple actually goes through the process essentially of unsubscribing you on the back end. I don't know how that works specifically, but that would be a way to do that without actually clicking on the unsubscribe link. The other thing you can always do is look at the email. If you're worried about it possibly being a phishing email, that clicking on that unsubscribe link is going to take you somewhere that it shouldn't or something along those lines. Look at the email address in which that came from. Again, if it's a legitimate business or a legitimate company email address that sent you that, it's going to have some type of show. It's going to be obvious that it's a legit email that's being sent to you.
Great question. Could you put up the last screen with your contact information? We'll take a picture. We'll do that in a moment. How is it best to warn elderly parents about this? That's a great question. We see that, unfortunately, the older population is a target of many of these scams. Have that conversation with them. We also do presentations for different community groups here in the city, whether it's church groups, different community organizations. I work a lot with seniors to bring this out into the public to these different community groups to bring the message, so hopefully they won't be scammed and can recognize the signs.
Yeah, the biggest thing with that is recognizing those signs. Obviously, you're going to know your loved ones, your parents, better than anybody else. So, take that effort in those conversations to kind of point out the specific things that you think they're going to pick up on, they're going to recognize, to make it most beneficial for them, so that they don't fall victim to it.
And it's really important when we cover that anyone can become a victim of these scams. If a friend or a relative, a parent has fallen victim, it's okay. And it happens because they're embarrassed and they're ashamed. And that's maybe why they didn't want to tell you in the first place. But work with them, work with law enforcement, and we'll try and remedy the situation as well as provide some additional assistance and more education so they don't fall victim in the future.
So this question says, if I understand correctly, if I got a scam pop up my computer, it may be compromised. No, just the pop up coming into your computer itself does not necessarily mean that your computer has been compromised. If you want to be rather safe than sorry, you can. You can have it diagnosed. You can take it to one of those tech support places that will diagnose your computer and tell you if it's been infected. That's where the antivirus stuff is going to come in. Because there's always stuff on the back side of the computers in the coding and the processing that would show if your computer has been compromised by a third party or an outside source. So if it's something that you're concerned about, again, you can always take those extra steps to ensure that it is protected or not compromised. But generally speaking, just getting the pop-up in and of itself does not mean that your computer has been compromised.
We have a question here. What is the newest evolving trend in scamming?
I mean, the cryptocurrency ones, they're not necessarily new. They're newer in the last year or two, becoming increasingly more popular. That's also where we're seeing the most money being lost by individual victims, typically are in the cryptocurrency. But I think as far as the newest evolving trends, personally, and what the cases we're seeing right now, it actually comes from a highly kind of sophisticated tech scam involving Chase Bank specifically. Nothing that Chase is doing, it's not their problem, it's not their fault. They're not doing anything wrong, but for whatever reason, these scammers are utilizing that bank to facilitate these scams. essentially where they're acting as bank employees, and ultimately getting access to debit card numbers, acting as bank employees.
Can phone numbers itself be spoofed or just the caller ID?
Uh, well, I mean, essentially, it's I guess the answer to that is they can be spoofed, but ultimately what it is it's showing up on the other end of the phone as a different number. Um, there are ways to, and I guess if I understand your question correctly, like if you were to look at your cell phone bill to see, what number that they have calling you, yes, that will show the the spoofed number that has called you. But it a lot of times will just show on the caller ID as a particular number that's not the legitimate number that it called from.
Right. Chris, we've got a question here. What about someone calling pretending that they're from the police department and they need bail money?
So with that issue, the best thing you can do and protect yourself. We do see these a lot. A lot of times it's again people falling victim to thinking that a relative out of state or somebody is needing that bail money. Um, if you're asking if the person on the phone is pretending to be the loved one needing bail money, again, you're going to know your loved ones and you're going to know whether or not that seems legitimate for that person that's actually calling you. If it's somebody posing to be a police department or a law enforcement official, um, they're never going to ask for money to be paid um, electronically. So if bail money is needed, there are always going to be other ways to go about that. You can also always check with the agency that they're claiming they're from to see, in fact, if your loved one is currently in jail that you would need to send bail money for by calling that agency.
Thank you. I think our last question here, discuss what you're hearing about Medicare and Social Security fraud phone calls, the angles that callers are using to get the data. What's their real goal? Just the Medicare number, or do they then dump the call and steal your identity?
Um, it just depends. There's always an angle. I mean, information for them is what's. I mean, obviously, money is the easiest and the best, but it can vary. If they're wanting just the information and the number, they can use that to open other accounts and do different things with that data and that information. If they're somehow trying to, and again, Medicare and Social Security fraud, it's kind of a broad uh, topic. So again, specifically, I'm not sure which type or what scam you would be looking at as far as how they would be contacting you or what type of information they would be looking to do. But at the end of the day, information and money is always what the scammers are looking for. It just depends on the type of scam. They're either looking for the information to be able to steal that information, to either sell that information, then use that information for other things, or again, they just want the quick money.
Great, thank you so much. And once again, I'm going to share my screens with our contact information really quick. You guys want to take a screenshot of that. Again, our non-emergency number is the 420-6666, or here's our individual information. But again, we will post this information online. We do thank you for your time today. And if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out.